period Enlightenment Thinkers Statue Theater presentation. We're excited that you're able to join us this morning for this activity. Students have been working hard, writing their scripts and preparing their props. So we're hoping that you will learn something along the way with us. Up first is the group with Hobbes.
Thomas Hobbes was born in England in 1588. He studied at Oxford and worked as a tutor for a wealthy family. He also traveled widely. Hobbes believed that in the state of nature, people were quick to fight. He believed without government, the society would become solitary, poor, nasty, and brutish. He also believed that the government was based on the social contract. Social contract was a contract that made you give up your natural freedoms in exchange for protection. Hobbes believed the best type of ruler was one individual.
All right, Montesquieu.
Philosopher born in France. His ideas and theories at that time seemed odd at first glance. He was born in 1689. In the beginning, his rich life was fine. He lived his life during the Enlightenment, so he ended up living in a very different type of environment. He spent most of his childhood with the working class. This made it so that he thought differently as time would pass. As a result, he learned what life was really like. He had grown up knowing this since he was a little tyke. He believed that the laws of different countries should not be the same, otherwise the people in the government would end up being to blame. To prevent corruption, there should be 3 separate branches, before this world burns down to ashes. An executive branch to enforce the law, so that the law doesn't contain a single flaw. A judicial branch, which would also be ideal, so that they can interpret the laws with zeal. Thirdly, a legislative branch should be included. To create the laws, Montesquieu concluded. His belief was that each branch should be able to limit each other's power, to keep from having one branch seem too greedy or dour. This idea was called checks and balances. All of his ideas a sign of magnificent brilliance. The spirit of laws was his masterful piece of work, despite all of his scientific quirks. In 1755 he died, and what he left behind was opinions and pride.
All right, John Locke.
Enlightening you all on the topic of government. I believe that a king should not be allowed to rule, and that people have the natural rights to life, liberty, and property, which is why they should be allowed to govern themselves. Man is born neither good nor evil. He becomes one or the other, so they should not be judged by how much they earn or what social class they're born into. Governments were made to protect people's rights, not extort them, which is why everyone should be treated equal.
Isaac Newton.
This is Sir Isaac Newton. He discovered gravity when an apple fell on his head. Gravity is the force that attracts 2 objects together. He also discovered the 3 laws of motion. The first law of motion is an object at rest will stay at rest, and an object also known as the law of inertia. The second law of motion is force equals mass times acceleration. Finally, the third law of motion is every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Today, we still use these 3 laws of motion.
All right, Mary Wollstonecraft.
Mary Wollstonecraft was a philosopher in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. At this time, many people believed that women were inherently inferior to men. However, Mary rejected these ideas. She believed that women had rights to the same education as men. Because she was a woman, she had no formal education growing up. Mary supported democracy and did not like governments that were run by monarchs. Wollstonecraft also believed in Locke's natural rights of life, liberty, and property. Her major work was The Vindication of the Rights of Women. This book explained that, because women educate the children of the next generation, it is essential that they receive a fair education. She also wrote that women could be companions to their husbands instead of just mere wives. Rather than speaking of and dealing with women as property or ornaments, Wollstonecraft explains that they are human beings who deserve the same fundamental rights as men. Mary Wollstonecraft was someone who thoroughly supported equal rights for women in a time when many people did not.
Thank you. JeanJacques Rousseau.
This here is the philosopher JeanJacques Rousseau. If you've heard of him, which I find unlikely, it is probably because of his 2 most famous books, Emile or Social Contract. However, this is rather a disappointment to Rousseau. You see, his aspirations were to become a famous composer, but since that obviously didn't work out, he needed some way to express his opinions. And there were a great many. For instance, he believed that all men were born good and compassionate, and among these men, everyone is equal, except for women, of course. And in this society of good and noble men, the ideal government would be a result of citizens' agreement to give up their natural freedoms for protection, though this government should follow what seems like the general will of the society. The term he uses for this agreement is a social contract. And apparently, he had so many thoughts about it, he used it for the title of his book.
Thank you. Galileo.
Such a theory was his claim to fame. He had a brand new view of the universe, but the church was making everything worse. Galileo was born in 1564. He didn't know it then, but he was starting a war. He followed Copernicus's lead with the heliocentric model that he agreed. Giordano Bruno was burned at the stake for supporting the theory. It was a big mistake. He invented cool things like the telescope, but these new ideas didn't please the Pope. He said no. Earth is the center, can't you see? Now I might charge you with heresy. Galileo Galilei, that was his name. The sun-centered theory was his claim to fame. He had a brand new view of the universe, but the church was making everything worse. They warned him in public and confronted him of his wrongs, but still he stood there, tall and strong. He was brought to Rome and put on trial, but Galileo was still in denial. Remained strong. Galileo Galilei, that was his name. The sun-centered theory was his claim to fame. He had a brand new view of the universe, but the church was making everything worse. Galileo soon passed, but his teachings still last. A new pope acknowledged Galileo was right, that there was no reason for a big ol' fight. Over time and time, people came to see Galileo's ideas from what they were thought to be.
Hello, my friends. My name is Voltaire. I am here to enlighten you on how to better your world, country, and way of life. There are many things we can do to better each other. However, there is something we can do right now. We can learn to tolerate and allow others to express their views. Freedom to worship as you please and write and speak as you please is a basic human right. Through tolerance and understanding, we can make peace. And as you leave, my friends, I hope you instill these beliefs.
Nicholas Copernicus.
This is Nicholas Copernicus. He was born on February 19th in 1473. He attended school at a university where he acquired his mathematical and astronomy skills. Later, he created the heliocentric theory, which states that the sun is at the center of the universe. Last year of his life. He is important because other scientists have built upon his ideas later on, after he died.
Adam Smith.
Adam Smith was born in Scotland in 1723. He studied at Oxford University from 1740 to 1746. In his lifetime, he wrote multiple books. The work he took the most pride in was The Moral of Sentiments, in which he wrote about mankind's ability to form moral judgment. His most well-known work was he discussed his observations that he had made about the economy. He was a firm believer in laissez-faire, which can be translated to let it be. He thought government should have very limited involvement in the economy. He believed that there were three things that the government was entitled to providing: protection to all citizens, to provide an exact administration of justice, and that it was held responsible for building and maintaining necessary establishments for the public. But overall, he believed that man was capable of taking care of himself and should do so if he wanted the most fulfilling lifestyle. Smith earned the title Father of Economics due to all of his insight.
All right, thank you everybody for tuning in. Certainly a great deal of creativity and work that went into what happened today. And hopefully we'll see you soon. Have a great day. Thank you.